Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another Valentine's card with very non-traditional Valentine colors. This is one of the reasons why I love the Color Throwdown Challenge, because a lot of times it really makes me think outside my pink and purple and aqua that I want to just go towards most of the time. So anywho, this is for last week's Color Throwdown Challenge. Just had difficulties getting this video done, but anywho. I'm starting with 2 stencils from a 4 stencil pack. This is from Simon's Love You release. This is the layering heart stencils. There's 2 stencils with larger hearts. That's what I'm using here. There's also 2 stencils with smaller hearts, and they're sized and positioned to make it easy to layer and stagger them. So I have one of the stencils on top of just some of Simon's smooth white cardstock. And I used a little bit of purple tape on the back to hold it in place. And then I'm working on my little Wendy Vecchi magnetic, like make art mat. And I'm using the magnets just to hold everything in place. And then the first layer, I did Rusty Hinge Distress ink. I'm using regular distress inks, which for me is a little bit out of the norm because I've been using Distress Oxide inks for, honestly can't even remember the last time I used regular distress inks because I've been obsessed with the oxides. I love them. However, because oxides are more opaque because they have the pigment in them, I didn't want that. I wanted that transparent look, hence me going with the regular distress inks, because you can see the layers of the hearts through. If I just used regular oxides, you wouldn't get the same effect. You'd still get some layers, but you wouldn't have that transparency, if hopefully that makes sense. So I did my 2 layers. The first one I had done the Rusty Hinge. The second layer was Crackling Campfire. And then I'm going in with Fired Brick. That's what I used. And I'm just kind of blending. I didn't want the white cardstock really to show at all. And for all of this, I'm just using one blending brush. I'm using one of my little Studio Katia blending brushes. These are some of my favorites, honestly. There's something about them. They're so soft. Anyway, between the colors, I would just kind of rub it on my very stained yellow microfiber cloth and then just keep applying the color. So I did that background and it was sitting here and I was like, I wasn't 100%. I was like, I was thinking splatter because you guys know, splatter all the things. I was going to splatter the heck out of it. And I was like, no, I don't want to do splatter this time. So what I did is I pulled out this older stamp. This is the UR background stamp that came out, I think last year or the year before, something like that. And I have it face up on my desk. I inked it up with Simon's burnt orange ink. And then I pressed the background onto it and I just used a bit of scrap paper there to keep all that ink from getting all over my hands. And then press that down really well. And now I've got this fun background. I need to do more things like this. I don't often do, just backgrounds, This, and also these would be really fun doing like in different colors. But anyway, on to this part. So I also pulled out my picture book mousse wafer die because I'm Canadian. There's literally, we see moose not too far from my house every once in a while. So anywho, I've shown many ways over the years how I've assembled these little characters. And if I remember at the end of the video, I have a playlist of a bunch of cards I've done using different picture book characters. But I've done things like I trace the outline of the wafer die onto copy paper and adhere all the pieces and then trim them out. Or I adhere everything kind of upside down and assemble them and adhere them with washi tape. There's all kinds of ideas. But this time what I did was I took the wafer die and I ran it through my die cut machine, my Spellbinders. And I used a rubber embossing mat and then the purple embossing pad and the platform. So this just embossed the die into this scrap of cardstock rather than cut it. And then all I did was go around inside those, like the outer edge, as I show here, with my scissors. I'm not worried. It doesn't have to be fancy. The cuts don't have to be nice. I undercut it on purpose though, so that none of that peeks out when I adhere all the pieces. And then all the actual pieces of that die, I just kept running it through my machine with just various scraps of brown and black cardstocks. This is why I keep all my little scraps. It used to be a rule of thumb back in the day. You only save, if it was less than 2 inches, it's not worth keeping. But now I keep every little scrap because they always come in handy. we die cut all the things. So I'm die cutting, you know, little eyeballs from tiny little scraps of black cardstock and little tiny hearts and stars and, you know, all the things. So I die cut all the pieces. I have them off to the side. And all I'm doing is applying craft tacky glue to my kind of scrap outline holder piece, whatever you want to call it. And then just adhering all of the pieces I die cut to make my little moose. So I got the idea to use the moose with this card because it was like, again, the color throwdown challenge. It started making me think because it was like brown, rust, and cream. And I just, you know, you just start thinking and planning and all that. And I was just like, what could I do that's brown? And I started thinking, I was like, ooh, critters, you know, bears and all that. So I was flipping through all my picture book dies because of course I have them all. And I saw the moose and I was like, I haven't used him in a while and he's super cute. So I'm going to do a moose. So that's what I did. So once I've got everything adhered, my little moose is complete and he's just fabulous. So and then I have my background, which was the rust. That's why I did those colors to do the stencil and the background stamp. And then I just need to bring in some cream. So I die cut some hearts using the Nested Hearts wafer dies from some cream cardstock. I also die cut this little Love You Sentiment. This is from one of the newer sets. This is from the Heart Animals die set that coordinates with the stamp set. So I die cut the little sentiment, and then I also die cut some scraps of burnt orange cardstock with those same Nested Hearts wafer dies. So I've got kind of a larger heart to frame my little moose, and then some other little hearts, and then I'm going to adhere this sentiment to that rust colored heart just to make it stand out a little bit, and shockingly did not stack the sentiment like I normally do. I just decided to keep it a little flatter this time. And then my background, it originally was A2 sized, but I cut it down a little bit so it's just slightly smaller than an A2 size card. And then I'm going to adhere all my little elements into place. So my die cut hearts and my little moose. And then once I've got all of these hearts kind of in place, my last little embellishment are these Trinity Stamps coffee bean heart sprinkles. I've used these on so many cards in so many random videos over the last year, however long it is since I bought this pack, and I still have tons. So many. Oh, and I also did a little bit of white gel pen highlights. Wasn't sure if I was going to do this, but once I got everything adhered, I was like, no, I want to add just a few little white gel pen highlights to my mousse just to make things stand out a little bit. So added those, and then I'm going to add my little coffee bean sprinkles. And FYI, online, they look a lot lighter. Like, for whatever reason, the image of these online looks very, almost like a craft color, but they're not. They're this darker brown color, and I really like them. Again, I've used them in so many random videos. So I just adhered a few of those into place. And then my card base is more of this cream cardstock, 4 1/4 by 5.5 card. So top folding A2 size card. So I scored that with my Teflon bone folder. And then I pulled out my Wendy Vecchi mat again. And the stencils again. And I'm going to just mask off above the fold line of this card so I don't get ink where I don't want it. And then I'm just going to line up the first stencil, and I'm going to do the exact same thing I did on for the card front, just more subtle. I'm not adding as much ink. So I'm starting with that Rusty Hinge Distress ink and my little blending brush. And I'm just not adding as much ink to the brush. Like, I'm kind of brushing off a lot of the excess onto the cloth first. Just getting a nice light layer of ink, nothing too fancy. And then the other stencil, line that up. And then I'm going to use just the Crackling Campfire ink. This time I'm not coming in with the faded brick ink to add that red. I'm just getting the hearts just to give the inside, you know, a little extra something. And same thing, not adding a ton of ink. I want this kind of light to make it easy to write over with, you know, a regular ballpoint pen. But yeah, it just kind of gives the inside that extra little something. So I did that for the inside. And then I also stamped a sentiment from this little Heart Animals set. I'm going to stamp that onto that piece of cream cardstock using VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves ink, just a nice dark brown ink. So once that's stamped, I'm going to die cut that with one of the Nested Hearts wafer dies. And I'm just using a piece of that same Post-it tape I used to mask the inside of the card, just to hold the wafer die into place. So I'm going to die cut that, and I also die cut a couple more little hearts from the remainder of the rust cardstock I had, where I die cut for the front of the card. So die cut those. It's got my sentiment on the inside, a couple more of these little die cut hearts. And then once I've got these adhered into place, I'm going to adhere my card front to my card base. And since I cut it down a little bit, the card base will then kind of frame and bring out a little bit more of the cream color onto this card. So, and then at the very end, like in the pictures, I didn't have it pulled out for the video. I don't know why. Mostly because I guess I just don't think ahead often enough. But anywho, in the photos at the end, I'm going to pair this card with a dark chocolate envelope from Simon as well, just to tie it all together. And then that will finish off this card. So, as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list. I'll link to all the supplies. I will link to the color challenge, even though last week's one's over. There's going to be a new one this week with new colors to check out. Always fun to play along with, though, regardless, because again, it gets you to think outside the box and it's fun. So check all that out in the description box below the video and on my blog, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!